one of the most successful G20 presidencies, to get China and to get Russia to sign off on the final document, the outcome document, which clearly has been not just finalized, it's been adapted as well. This is huge. What do you make of it?
Well, firstly, I'd like to congratulate everyone who negotiated, diplomats, Sherpa, the ministers and everyone who's involved, but also everyone from the other sides.
Right.
Be it Russia or be it the Western world. There must have been some give and take and some consciousness that the world will not take it lightly if there's a failure here. The second thing is that if you read the media reports, the global media reports of this morning, they were all very pessimistic.
Exactly.
That the declaration will not come out. They were so certain. So they will have to eat crow when they make their print tomorrow morning. But more than that, on the substantive side, if you look at what has already come out, African Union getting admission into the G20, which now becomes G21, it balances the world in a major way, because till now EU was represented, which was in a fundamental sense very disorienting, because EU had countries which were the colonizers. The colonies were left out. So African Union has brought in the balance, and it has done the right thing by removing an injustice in the membership of the G20. The other thing is the railway network, which is being planned through
the India, US and Saudi Arabia deal.
And yes. UAE.
Yeah, UAE.
But more than that, it also means that there is also some kind of a agreement on issues like climate change and what to do about it, or digital issue. So these will come out as we get to see the text. But I think all congratulations to all members of G20, but particularly to India and everyone involved in the efforts that India has made in making this a success.
Well, you know, it's been a super success, India's G20 presidency, because huge takeaways, and there was so much suspense on the fact on whether or not there will be a joint declaration. Well, guess what? It's happened less than 24 hours of the summit actually kick-starting. The Prime Minister a short while ago, and we're going to play that reaction of the Prime Minister there. The G20 final document hasn't just been created, it's also been adapted, it's been formalized, and India has been able to get the likes of Russia and China to sign in on it. There will be a Delhi declaration, and consensus on that has been reached, and this has been confirmed by the Prime Minister himself, where he said in unison that the declaration has been adapted by all the nations sitting there. A huge, huge development, a huge breakthrough. And if you actually look at it, when you look back on India's G20 presidency, it's going to be humongously successful, not just with the advent of the African Union, changing not just the physical contours on what exactly the G20 has stood for when it comes down to inclusion of developing countries, where from G20 it's now G21. And just a short while back, and Ambassador Dogra is right, just a short while back, we were speaking to international journalists, and there seemed to have been so much apprehension, Ambassador Dogra, on the fact that whether or not there will be consensus on the Delhi Declaration. Guess what? It's happened, and it's huge. I want to quickly bring in my colleague Shiv Arur into this conversation as well. Shiv, so much speculation since the course of the morning. Less than 24 hours of the summit, and there is consensus that has been reached on the Delhi Declaration. It's been adapted, and the messaging which is going on. India has been able to get China and Russia on board.
Incredible achievement. I agree with every word you've just used, Preeti. What India has managed to do is what Indonesia didn't really manage to do. Last year, we've seen, what Putin has gone back on his words. China has retracted. The world has completely changed since the Bali summit of the G20 last year. But the Delhi Declaration finding alignment, finding consensus, and being adopted unanimously is an enormous achievement, not just of Indian leadership, but our diplomatic machinery as well. It's a vindication of India's foreign policy stand over the last couple of years, and especially post the Ukraine war. Remember, among a plethora of contentious issues that had made consensus on this Delhi Declaration elusive and difficult and complicated were the Ukraine war, and the other was, the multilateral debt restructuring between various countries. The debt restructuring was a slightly more straightforward issue to resolve. The Ukraine war was not, because Putin and Xi Jinping are the two people who are direct stakeholders in what is happening, and both of those leaders are not here either. They've sent their representatives. So for the Delhi Declaration to find consensus, just a few hours into day one of the G20 is an enormous affirmation of India finding that independent middle ground, being able to achieve the kind of alignment and consensus necessary for a unanimous adoption. Very, very difficult. As you know, Preeti, this is a nuanced issue where, the international order has continuously changed its views. It's a story in motion. The Ukraine conflict is still very much on. The post-COVID geopolitical situation is one that is, still rapidly transforming itself. And therefore, India, which was criticized last year for its neutral stand on Russia and Ukraine, stands completely vindicated right now. Not only has it been able to send out a message as far as trust deficit is concerned, which is what the Prime Minister did this morning in his opening address, but it has been able to find global consensus within the G20 on the most contentious issue of our time, and that is the Russia-Ukraine war. Can't wait to see what the big pointers are from that declaration. But as you broke just now, Preeti, consensus have been achieved. Big, big development.
Well, big development there. Of course, what remains to be seen is the fine print of that document. But the Delhi Declaration has been adopted. And that was mooted by the Prime Minister himself. I want to quickly bring in my colleague Poulomi Saha. Poulomi, one thing that can be now said very clearly is India's G20 presidency has been a super success. Yes, one needs to read into the fine print of the document, but to reach consensus, to get China on board, to get Russia on board, we will give that caveat that we need to read the fine print of the declaration, but to get consensus where there was so much speculation and apprehension, especially from foreign media, is huge, Poulomi.
Absolutely. This is a big declaration, in fact, quite literally, that's coming from the Prime Minister himself at the start of session 2 of the G20 summit. We thought, the Sherpas would be working at it till Sunday morning in order to get the fine print through.